Good evening. This is Harold Zawatsky. I am the chair of the Fairfield Board of Assessment Appeals. Tonight is Thursday, May the 6th. The time is 8:06 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. And this meeting is a continuation of our deliberations and voting upon appeals properly before the board. Also, if necessary, to deliberate and vote upon recommendations by the assessor and the changes he has made. Tonight, we do not have the assessor available to us. He is at another meeting where they will be determining the mill rate for the town of Fairfield. So tonight, we are going to continue with deliberations on appeals that the members of the board has asked us to reconsider. I believe we have a total of 6. And I will also state that unlike we are hearing in the news that that senior members of our federal government have announced that they are choosing to fight against the administration and to oppose the administration. I believe that this is a bipartisan group, and I have been asked by members of the board that were in the minority if I would motion 2 appeals to be brought forward for consideration, and I will do just that in the spirit of bipartisanship and in the spirit of allowing all members to hear those appeals and to vote upon them. Now, as you know, during our process, which goes back to March the 2nd, oftentimes we've had less than the majority, and many times we've had only 5 members. So the votes have sometimes been close. So I'm very happy that we have all members tonight that can consider the information that is going to be presented on these 6 appeals, and that a full board will be able to vote on them. Any questions before we start? Then I will ask Kathleen to please do a roll call of the members that are present. Kathy, would you do that, please?
Paulette Kuzo.
Here.
Kathleen Griffin.
Here.
Alexis Harrison.
Here.
Peter Rupert.
Here.
Harold Zawatsky.
Here.
Ronique Patel.
Here.
John Spoilier.
Here.
Judy Zablak.
Here.
Catherine Giff.
Here.
That completes the roll call.
Thank you very much, Kathy. And I am very happy that we have all 9 members present this evening. So the first appeal that I would like to motion to bring back to the table is appeal number 482. Appeal number 482 has the address of 2082 Fairfield Beach Road, and the owner is Scott Lipstrew. Do I have a second? I see.
I'll second.
Okay. Kathleen's hand is up for a second. So the reason I wanted to bring this appeal back, this is a garage studio on the creek side, is deeded to the same owner property on the beach side. And this appeal was first heard, I believe, very early on in the process, and then was voted upon on 4/20. That's when deliberation and voting was done. And I voted in the affirmative, but I wanted to bring it back because I did not really understand all of the information that was on the field card. And if you wish to look at the field card, I'll give you a moment to bring it up. You will see that there's a lot of information there, more than you would think. For example, in the notes, you will see that this house is 2¼ stories high with HVAC, that's heating and air conditioning, and it has a house. In addition to that, if you look down on the second page where it has outbuilding and yard items, there's a coding for the garage with studio, which is the third item down, which is an FGR9. Now that is a code that the town uses to determine what type of garage this is. And if you look up that code, it is in the BAA database, along with so many of the other codes. You would see that that is the coding for a garage with studio with a bath, a half bath in this case. And it has a price of value of $150,000. And as you can see, that was reduced further to $135,000. But that plus the fact that there's a dock and a wooden deck on the house. And in addition to that, there was a bulkhead that was worked on that has had a permit, and it cost $97,220 to replace. The boathouse had pulled a permit for $175,000, but as we see, that was reduced to $135,000. And also, there was a permit that was pulled for $60,000 for the bath and the air conditioning. In addition, there's a deck that has a value of $2,100 and a dock that has a value of $7,700. All that totals to $144,800 for the structure. So I think that when the appellate was asking for a reduction for $121,306, which we eventually granted, and I voted to grant, I did not take into consideration all of the value of the structure. Now, what I also noticed was the value of the land. And here, I gave some thought to the recent experience we had. Now, the land is very small. The land is only 770 square feet. And I thought about the appeal that we heard the other day, where we reduced the value of a 750 square foot plot of land on the creek side to $37,500. So in this case, I feel strongly that the structure's value is reasonable, but perhaps the land value is overvalued, given the fact that the land here is 750 square feet, 770 square feet, and the other day we valued a 750 square feet plot of land to $37,500. So I feel that it's reasonable to take $20,000 off of this property and reduce the value thereby to the town's value less $20,000, or bringing it down to $184,300 by reducing the land to 39,000. What would it be? $39,400, I think. So that's the reason that I wanted to bring it back, and that would be my proposal to reduce the value by $20,000 to make the land value $39,500, and the grant in part to a total of $184,300. Any further comment before we vote on bringing it back to the table? Then I will say, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of bringing this appeal back to the table, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor of bringing it back to the table. So opposed? 1, 2, 3 opposed. The motion to bring it back to the table is granted. The vote is 6 in favor, 3 opposed.
Read out who's opposed, Harold?
Yes, opposed was Ronique, Judy, and Paulette. Ronique, Judy, and Paulette opposed. Okay, so basically, as I said, as in my argument to bring it back to the table, yes, Kathleen. You're muted.
Since it's as if the decision never happened before. So what you need to do is make a motion to grant the appeal. You can read it off of the sheet or whatever, sort of like the first time around, from the town's value to the requested amount that the appellant, right? So you want to go back to the sheet and read.
Yes. Yes, I'll do that. Then if anyone wishes to make an amendment, then we will do the amendment. Okay. So again, I motion to grant this appeal to $121,300. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Judy seconds. So I made a motion to grant to the requested value by the appellant of $121,300. The appraised value was $204,300. And I'd like to make a motion to reduce, I'm sorry, yes, Kathleen, did I jump a step?
This is Kathleen. Before you do that, I just want to make a comment. I did go back and listen to the appellant's appeal this afternoon or yesterday. I enjoyed listening to Ronique and you because I think it was one of his first appeals, and just, I don't know, reminded me how far everybody's come and, you know, how new it was then and why we're here, because we get to talk to the public. That's really what I enjoyed the most about this. But anyway, when I listened to her argument, she actually had two. Their question was because their lot is super small and they don't have a lot of parking. And so I think you intend to address that by reducing their home. I think their other argument was that their structure, there are so many other houses on the creek side that have rentals in them, or that have, you know, bigger structures on them. And so she was asking, why is her house or the structure at 135 and all these other people have structures, you know, that are bigger or nicer than hers, and they are lower than theirs. So it's, you know, my neighbor has this, how come I'm higher than my neighbor? But when we look at the improvements on the property, regardless of the land, I started to look at some of those structures that she mentioned. One of them is a rental unit and is, you know, under by the town. And I asked Ross, I said, you know, look at these 3 or 4. These guys have air conditioning, they have half baths in them in the notes, and they're not coded as an FG, you know, a garage. And so I think do you want me to finish or, okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing because it bothered me when they brought up those comps. That was brought to my attention by the chart that was presented. And so I looked at, for example, the property on the creek side at 1556 Fairfield Beach Road. That's a garage. It's valued at $51,800 dollars. The entire garage, $51,800, but that has plumbing and a bath for $51,800. Another one was at 1726. That property, it has heat, a half bath, and is marked as with very good quality. For $53,600 for the entire property, including the building and the lot. And I believe that that's undervalued too. So, that just led, those are properties that we're appealing, but I think that the calculations that were done by the appellant using square footage of properties that are undervalued, let's face it, if you've got heat, you've got a half bath above a garage, on a raised garage that has a studio above it, quite honestly, I think that that's not a realistic number. Yes, Kathleen.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, or what I was going to say was I checked those few properties. I just emailed them to the assessor today and said, could you just take a look at these and tell me, and he said, yes, those are coded as FGR5 or some other code, and they should be an 8 or a 9 because they do have half baths. So he will look into those while we probably won't be able to bring them up to where they should be this year. For next year, he will put them in his, changes in the grand list, because clearly those are just miscodes on the card. They should be being appraised, and that's fair so I can see why the appellant is frustrated. And this is one of those cases where the neighbor is too low, but it's a coding problem. So they can fix the code on it. And then the neighbors' garages that have heat, or the ones that rent, that are actually accessory dwelling units that, we didn't catch, that kind of thing in the revaluation, those properties will come up next year. So not that that's comfort appellant, but it's making it fair, because there's a lot of, I've been down there a couple of times, there's a lot of very large structures, on the creek side on these homes. And, there's a lot of value, I think, in that. So.
This is Harold. Rodney, I'll get to you in a minute. Yeah, it's not for us to say what the assessor is going to do with these properties, but a lot has happened in the 5 years. Maybe these properties have electricity in them, but since then, they might have put in air conditioning, they might have put in plumbing if it was allowed. There were structures that I noticed that had venting for bathrooms. You could see the vent chimney coming up through the ceiling of the garage, but there's no mention of heating or a bathroom in the unit. So things have perhaps changed inside these garages. Even the garages with a loft above or studio, but they have not been picked up by the town. And to use them as a comp for this property for appeal number 482, I think is not a good comp, because of the things that I mentioned, the permits that were pulled. I'll also mention that I found, and I added it to the last page of the file, you can see the permit and the variance that was granted to this property. If you look at the last page, excuse me, it's not on the last page. The assessor said he was going to add it to the file, but I have a copy of it here. And what it states is, I had it here a moment ago. Oh gosh. Yes. If you allow me, I'm going to read off of this. Okay. And what it says is, this is an application for a variance, and a variance was granted to this property to adjust the structure from the 10 feet and 10 feet required setbacks to its current 2.3 feet and 8.1 feet setbacks, which gave him a larger area to build upon. It also states that it was conditioned upon no kitchen, no shower, bath only, and no tenants. So clearly, it's not something that could be rented, but that's not to say that you can't have a refrigerator in there. It does have HVAC. I saw the unit myself. He has a half bath in there, and he can enjoy this property when he has guests or the family, because there's a dock back. And he has a deck. And so he has a lot of features to enjoy. And that's why I think the structure, the dwelling values are valid. But I see a disconnect in the land value, and that's why I would like to suggest a 20,000 reduction on this appeal, so that the value would go to $184,300. Yes, Judy.
All right, I gotta say something, and I'm sorry. Okay, I think it's positively deplorable that we could have granted an appeal and then come back and change it and want to go pretty much close to what the assessment, the town's appraisal was after we already granted it. And I was in favor for it then. I can't fathom how someone could, all that information was there on the field card to begin with. That is, it's not new information. It was there. And I just, I am very disappointed that we're even having this conversation.
Ronnie?
So, few things. So I'm the one that presented this case. One, when I presented it, the docs were not uploaded, right? And this was the first day of appeals. At least when I was presenting. So I'm surprised the docs aren't uploaded. Second, I was under the impression that there was no plumbing or half bath, that the space above the garage was just an office. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I just thought there was no plumbing in that unit.
It's right there on the field card, though. When we went to deliberate it, you would have seen it on the field card. It's Judy.
Judy, you're right. It was on the field card. It was on the field card, but we were running through these very quickly. I don't think, speaking for myself, I did not fully appreciate how that information affected the value of this property.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So you may consider the fact that bringing an appeal back is deplorable, but we have several that we're going to do tonight. I don't think it's deplorable. It's allowed. And I am simply stating the reasons why I wish to bring it back. And I don't think that the reasoning is deplorable, even though you consider the act to be deplorable. Alexis, you have your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Ronique what he meant by the documents weren't uploaded. Did you not have information? Did we not? I'm just a little unclear on that. And why did we proceed with the hearing if that was the case?
Yeah, this is Ronique. He definitely provided more documents than what's uploaded right now in this file. And so I'm just a little bit surprised. But going
Surprised
back
by what?
to, I don't see all the documents he supplied. I'm trying to remember exactly what was going on in this appeal. I know I heard it, but there was more documents that you provided. Like Harold has hard documents of it, which I'm really happy he does. I just don't see it in the file. But also, going back to it, if I totally get the point that if he had plumbing and electricity, it brings up the value considerably, right? Because you can't do that. I guess I was just under the impression that he didn't have plumbing and he just had an office above the garage. Like, if he has plumbing, that's a value that you can't exactly pinpoint a price to anymore, because you can't have that anymore. And especially, I'm surprised if he has plumbing and he has a half bath, why he couldn't rent it or make that into a rentable space or variance. But that's another comment. But I just didn't think he had a half bath in this case.
This is a follow-up question for my other question. How did you vote for this during our original deliberations?
That is on the, excuse me, let me explain. Did you see the email from Kathleen?
Yeah, I'm just asking him right now, too.
That voting information is presented on the letter.
Can't you just say that as well right now?
I'll read it to you, if I may. The motion passed 4-1-0 with Kuzo, Sablack, and Zawadzki in favor, Griffin opposed. Okay, I just wanted to read that to you since you asked, okay? But again, in my own defense, since I'm the one bringing this forward, I did not understand the meaning of what is it, an FG? I don't have it in front of me now. The FG9, which based upon a table in the town's records, in the BAA, in the file, all of the charts are kept, states that if it's coded as an FBR9, it has a value of $150,000. I didn't take into consideration that he pulled a permit of $60,000 and got a variance to put in a half bath and HVAC. I didn't take into consideration that he had an original permit to build the structure for, what was it, 100 and, let me find it now, new construction, $175,000. So, you know, taking these things into consideration, and the fact that we were doing these so rapidly, I didn't study the code as well as I should have when I made the vote. But given this information, I felt it appropriate to, one, address the issue of the value of the dwelling, and two, address the issue of the value of the land, because only 2 days ago, we heard a 750 square foot lot, vacant lot, was valued at $37,500. So I felt that 770 square foot lot with the variance, with the structure on it, deeded to a home across the street, should be worth $39,500. That's all. Yes, Paulette.
Thank you, Harold. I have a couple of questions. First of all, I look at the remodel for $60,000. That was to add a bath. Actually, it's a half bath in this case. What did they do? Line it in gold? Because a full bath, high-end full bath, would cost like $30,000. This is $60,000 for a half bath. Doesn't seem, and that was 2017. That doesn't seem to make sense. So I have questions about that. The other thing is the replacing the bulkhead, $97,220. Now he had to pay for that, and nobody replaces it unless it needs to be replaced. This is not something that you want to spruce up because of the cost of it. So it's only going to be done if it needs to be done for whatever reasons, structural reasons or whatever. Now on South Pine Creek Road, they have the same issue because they're just mirror properties. Those bulkheads were replaced at the town's cost. The homeowners did not have to pay. So I don't think it's fair to take that and say, okay, that adds another $97,000 or whatever they gave him credit or they charged for it. Oh, he said no charge, right? So they're not charging them. My mistake. I didn't see that. Okay.
No, there's no value to the town for that bulkhead. He chose to do it himself and he paid for it, and the town is not taxing him on that. But regarding the $60,000, just state he did have to tie into the sewer line to do that.
I don't think he chose to do it. I think he had to do it. Nobody really chooses to do it. It has to be done.
What,
Let's see.
the sewer line or the bulkhead?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying the town is not charging anything for the bulkhead.
I do. I realize that. So I guess I don't know where they got that $60,000 for the bathroom. If that was on his permit, then I guess that's what he thinks it was, but it couldn't have been. But I don't know. I guess my other issue is, you know, this reminds me of like if you went to the store and purchased something for $40 and I don't know, 8 months later, they call you and say, oh, you know what? We made a mistake. We should have charged you 50. Could you pay us another 10? We made a decision based on the information we had. We could go back and open every one of these appeals and say that we didn't know things. And he probably, if he didn't already get a letter, if we had made a mistake and we went back and corrected it before he was notified, I'd say, all right, well, okay, you want to do it, you do it. But I bet you by now, if this was one of our first appeals, he had to be notified that we granted his appeal. And now we're going to go back and change it. That's what upsets me about it. Like, we made a mistake. We should live with it. I know it cost the town money, but you know, that was our error. We're not knowing, and you know, nobody's fault. It's just that we didn't know. I just don't think it's right.
I understand your point. The issue that with the bulkhead, I mentioned it to indicate that this homeowner obviously values his land and felt that the bulkhead was necessary. The town is not assessing him for that. The $60,000 permit that he built, maybe he didn't spend all of that on just the bathroom. Maybe he spent it also on the HVAC system and the cost to tie into the sewer line, because I don't think the town picks up the cost if you wish to tie into the sewer line. I don't know if he spent all that. Look at what the original permit was to build the structure, and add that, consider that as well. Relative to your comment about, do we have the right to reconsider these votes? I think you agree that we do, because there are board members who were in the minority that approached me and asked me to bring back appeals to reconsider. So obviously, some board members feel that it is appropriate to do that. Okay, so I think with what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yes, Catherine.
As I'm trying to learn this process of reconsideration, if we the vote to reconsider, if that passes, does it automatically negate the decision that was made previously?
That's correct. It annuls the previous decision and we start from scratch.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Thanks.
That's why I motioned to grant the appellant's requested value. The town has a value. I'm considering making a motion for to make a amendment to change the value, and then we will vote on that, assuming that we get to that stage.
But right now, what the motion that's on is what is the exact motion we're discussing now?
The motion now is to grant the town's value or the appellant's value.
And the appellant's value is?
$121,300.
Okay. I'm following now. Thank you. Sorry, everybody.
Judy, yes?
Yeah, I still have a huge issue with this. If the if the letter hadn't already gone out to the appellant and say, okay, we granted your appeal, that would be one thing, but that already went out. And that's why it's just really bad. I can't say enough words, and I'm sorry to use the harsh word of deplorable, but that's how I feel.
Well,
I think I just really think we shouldn't have brought this back. If people feel that they made a mistake, I'm sorry, but this is what it is, and I think we should stay with the appeal that we granted, 4-1.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask the board this in general, okay? I'm not going to suggest that we do this, but as chairman, I'm going to suggest, if you feel that we should not be bringing back any appeals for reconsideration, should we just take these 6 appeals and deny bringing any of them back to the table as a a group. Is that something, Judy, do you want to say that that's what we should be doing?
Harold, what I am saying is that if you've
No, that's
already
fine.
granted, no, hold on, I'd like to just finish my statement. So if you granted an appeal at the appellant's number or number, to come back now and to increase it, that's a problem. To come back now because we made a mistake because we overestimated it or some reason like that, that's different. But to come back, to go back on our word after we granted something, that's what I have a problem with.
We're
So
not
to increase it, because we're going,
I would adjust what you said to say we're not going back on our word. We are reconsidering an appeal.
well, I'm not reconsidering, okay, I'm not reconsidering that. I think we should be at the 121.3 as we already agreed upon, 4-1.
That is what we would vote on with the full 9-member board, because you only had 5 members at that time. So the reason that we are doing this when we have all 9 members is to present the case to the full board to give it a complete and unobtrusive airing. Ronique?
Yeah, just a question. Do we have confirmation that there's plumbing in that garage?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Catherine?
How?
I'm learning to live with this as I mull things over here. I think because we have the original appeal on the table right now to discuss, I would request that we should soon call a vote. And the reason that I'm thinking this is kind of a fine line if the appellant brought any new information, or we really acquired any new information, or we acquired new understanding through the process. So I think my vote's going to be swayed a little by that criteria of what information is now new. Whether it was brought by the appellant, we sought out additional information, or our understanding increased. So that's how I'm going to sway. I see John's hand up. I don't want to have the last word, but I would like to eventually soon call the vote. But John, you had your hand up, and I don't want
Yes,
to
John.
quash discussion.
Judy and Paulette, I understand how you feel on this. From my perspective, I haven't heard this appeal. This is the first time it's coming to me, and I believe it's coming to 4 of the 9 members here. So I'm looking at it as brand new, and that's while I understand how you feel that, where we are taking this and potentially increasing what the value is based on what we originally voted. I think to Harold's point is that we do have 4 sets of eyes, other eyes looking at this. And I guess for lack of a better term, to make the right decision as a group. So.
And this is Harold, and that's the reason why we held off to have all 9 members, because this first appeal, whether it's granted or denied, is going to set the tone for the other 5 appeals that we're going to hear. And to John's point, the reason that we're doing this is because we have the full membership of the board, and new information has come to light. I believe that I've explained, and I believe I have made an offer, a bipartisan offer to hear other appeals that were brought to my attention. And I believe I have a solution that will grant a fair value to the appellant for this property, while taking into consideration all of the information, i.e. the variance, the additions to the structure, the value of the structure, and the value that the perceived value that it has to the homeowner. Okay, so if there's no further comment or discussion, and if we proceed down this route, we will continue with the other 5 appeals in the same way, with the understanding that we are, our process is valid to bring these appeals back to the. Kathleen?
I just wanted to add one thing, and it's sort of maybe sometimes where I come from, is that, you know, this is a pie, right? And everybody is supposed to pay, hopefully will pay their fair share of the pie based on what they have in their homes or in their yards or the, you know, the values of their properties. And so if we know that this person is paying less and we feel bad because, you know, we want to make a change, then somebody else has to pick up that, you know, everybody else has to pick up more of that pie because they're not paying their fair share. Maybe you know, so, you know, there's the sympathy, you feel bad for it. You know, they were at that, it's not like we're raising them. They were at that level when they started. This is the number that they asked for. And we're just, you know, we're reevaluating, you know, is the number that we gave them. You know, in hindsight, you know, we learn when we do these, you know, we had Jim went after this. So I just sort of try to take that approach as, you know, is this person paying their fair share when I make my decisions?
Alexis, yes.
Yeah, and I heard a few things through this discussion. The fact that, you know, most appeals, John, and John made the comment about, you know, this appeal now has the pleasure of having all of our eyes on it. Most of the appeals didn't have that, and we can't review and unring the bell here for all of them. That's the reality of the situation. I don't know about the fair share, Kathleen. I'm not sure if I agree with you there. Some people may say that these were not based on fair assessment, so I'm not sure if I agree with your statement. I appreciate the bipartisan spirit that you're trying to do, Harold. I really do. I'm just a little frustrated by this one. Again, I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
I mean,
All right, well,
Kathleen,
I don't believe that changes our process.
No, and I would recommend to the assessor next year that, you know, wait till we're done. If you know, if we're still deciding and our decisions aren't final until we're done, perhaps we can take the route that, look, he doesn't send out the letters until you know, till we've closed our session, because these are continuing meetings. It's one meeting, we're still going, and perhaps we can take that approach and see whether that's a legal thing. And I would actually prefer that, because then they all get their letters at the same time. They all have the same period to file in court, because we've got people anxious, you know, to get the minutes correct because they were decided earlier. They're running out of their 60 days to let us know. So maybe that is something that, you know, this year it's too late for that, but maybe that's something we can, you know, ask and see if that's legal. And it doesn't have, if the decision isn't final till we're done, then maybe the letters don't have to go out until we're done. It makes Ross's lot.
Well,
I'd like to call order here. Can we just stay on topic here? Can we stay on this appeal? Kathleen, is that order?
Repeat what you want to say, Alexis.
We need to stay on topic. Kathleen is out of order right now, not addressing the appeal. She's addressing letters, and that's not really pertinent to this discussion. I'd like to move to call the question. I'd love to get a second on that.
Yeah, I think that we're dealing with the way things are today, and
I call the question.
have been sent out. So point of order, you're calling a point of order, Alexis?
I called the question. I called the question. When someone calls the question under Robert's rules, that usually stops the debate, if there's a second.
I'll second it, but I thought Paulette had her hand up.
Oh,
No,
I
didn't.
didn't understand. You're coming through. I'm sorry. Maybe it's my connection. You're coming through a little garbled. Can someone tell me what Alexis is proposing?
I was just trying to call the question, just trying to move things along here, and Kathleen was not talking on topic.
All right, very good. The question is called. I'm going to call a vote, but I'm going to, before I call a vote, I would like to.
You take a vote on calling the question, not on the motion on the table. So Judy seconded the motion to call the question. Now you take a vote on calling the question. All those in favor of
All right,
calling the question?
But I also said Paulette had her hand up.
I didn't realize Paulette had a question, so I'm
No,
gonna withdraw
I didn't.
mine.
No, I think I was just, I'm
Well,
sorry, I think
once someone calls the question, it's not a debatable issue. Someone seconds it, and then you call a vote on calling the question.
And what is the question, may I ask?
Your
The
motion,
question
the
is
motion on the table?
Okay, I'm calling a vote on the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
All those in favor of what?
That's what I was asking, of calling the question, which would be the,
Closing,
go to
closing
the,
debate.
to go to the, close the debate and go to the original motion, which
Okay.
preempts me from making a grant in part.
this is killing me. Can't we just do it? Why do we have to have a billion motions? Can't we just do it? Let's just vote. I've never seen such a big deal to vote on something.
I would like to make a motion to grant in part.
Okay. All right, so then we have to
No,
vote
we
on that.
have to have a second. We need to have, Paula, we need to vote. Do we want to vote right now on the motion to grant
The
the,
requested
And we
amount
need a
versus the
two-thirds
town value.
majority.
That's the question. Grant the requested amount against the town value. So that's the question. If you want to vote on that immediately, please raise your hand.
Can you repeat that number?
The requested value was 121,300. All those in favor of granting,
Well, no, it's all those in favor of calling a vote.
all those in favor of
original.
calling the vote now, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3 in favor, 4 in favor.
Paulette?
I don't even know. What are we voting on?
Yeah. Paulette, all he wants to do is go back to the original motion, so because you were
And
calling.
do a vote on the original motion.
Okay. All right, my hand's up.
I have 5 in favor.
So if there's a vote for this, there's no way to amend it to
Correct.
another value. So
That is
basically, it's just voting on denying the appeal.
Oh,
Yes.
wait a minute.
Alexis, call the motion. We have to vote on the motion to end the debate and go back to the original motion, which is to grant either the $121,400 or the town's value of $204,300. All those in favor?
Harold, excuse me, I thought you were trying to vote in part, grant in part. What happened to that?
Alexis preempted that.
All right, then I'm gonna withdraw. I'm gonna take it back. I'm withdrawing it.
She didn't preempt
Maybe
it.
to
It's just
overcome
a
the
have to
motion.
call fail.
This
I did
debate's
not-
going on for an hour. We have a lot of other work to do.
I did not,
Yeah.
look, folks, I am trying to set a pattern for the other 5 appeals. And that is to hear them with the 9 members. If you want to just cancel them all out alone, like Judy and others may have suggested, we can call.
No, don't put that in my mouth. I did not say that. I did not say that.
You said that it's unfair to do this.
It's unfair to now go back up after you've already granted an appeal to now raise it after you've sent something out to somebody. That's the problem.
Have to give everybody equal opportunity. We can't only.
I'm gonna zip my lips because I can really get.
We have
just zipping.
to give equal opportunity. And if
Now,
you're,
everybody should have equal opportunity.
if
right.
you're concerned about the fact that another letter might have to go out to the appellant based upon a new value, whether it's up or down, that's not our concern.
If we made a mistake, if members of the board made a mistake and granted an appeal, if they're concerned about it, and they granted an appeal and the town sent a letter out, and right now it's too late. As far as I'm concerned, it's too late. And you know what? You can fix that next year. You can do it just like Kathleen mentioned.
All
You
right.
know, so now, at this point, maybe you make a new rule and then you
Let's-
wait until the end of deliberations.
We've spent an hour on our first appeal, okay? We first spent an hour on our first appeal. Almost an hour.
Okay,
Alexis had called the question.
I think I withdrew that, didn't I?
She's withdrawn the call, the previous question to call the question. So Harold, you are now free to make your
All right.
amended motion.
Alexis has withdrawn her motion to call the question, so we do not have to vote on that any longer. So I would like to make a motion to amend this appeal to the value of $184,300. Do I have a second?
This is John, I'll second.
John has seconded. All those in favor of granting this appeal to the amended value of $184,300, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. Lexis, I didn't see a vote. No vote from Lexis yet.
Oh,
Opposed?
sorry, I'm opposed to it.
All right, opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. The appeal is granted. The appeal is granted to a new value of $184,000.
It's not granted, the
Oh, it's not
amended
granted.
value.
Granted in part. Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet. We need to vote now on granting. So we voted on the amended value.
We have a majority of the granted in part to 184,000 as an amendment. Now, I call a vote to the original motion to grant to the amended value of $184,300. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Hold on. Harold, the motion should be to grant the appellant's value versus the
Yes,
new
I can
value.
mention that. The appellant's value was $121,300. And I motioned to grant in part to $184,300. All those in favor of granting in part, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. Opposed? 1, 2. Abstentions? I didn't see your vote, Ronique.
I voted in favor. You have that in the count.
I voted opposed.
Alexis didn't vote.
I
Alexa-
voted opposed. I did
Opposed.
vote.
So I have three opposed. Peter, are you opposed?
I'm opposed.
Yes, I have 3 opposed, 6 in favor, no abstentions.
No, Catherine abstained.
And Judy, how did you vote?
Opposed.
5 in favor.
I have 5 in favor, 3 opposed, and 1 abstention. 5 in favor, 3 opposed, 1 abstention. The motion is granted in part to $184,300. Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Yes, please.
I mean, I wasn't happy about this one. You know why? But what I find worse than that is the fact that we are now going to squeal on other people who we don't think are paying enough taxes. Do we work for the Gestapo? Is this some kind of a new thing? Do we line up with Germany that we go and look for reasons to raise people's taxes? Why don't we just mind our own business?
Well, I think that these were brought to our attention by the appellates
No, no,
and
not,
used in their arguments.
no, I'm not talking about this guy. I'm talking about, his, whatever he used for comps or whatever people might have seen. Why don't we just leave that alone? That has nothing to do with us.
Well, we are leaving it alone. And you're right, it has nothing to do with us. We're not voting on those, but it's part of the public record.
But we're bringing it to the assessor, I thought.
The public assessor can do what he chooses to do with it. That is out of our purview.
Okay.
All right, do we have another appeal?
Yes. The next appeal number is 547. I think
And this is-
Kathleen has that one. If you want to present that, Kathleen?
4-7.
Yes, in this case, because this was, well, actually, there were 3 motions. One was withdrawn, but since there were 2 motions on this, I think, and I intend to not, I want to strike the second motion. So I think I'm going to make a motion to rescind these 2 motions, motion number 2 and motion number 3. So it was an appeal that was decided on April 26th. It's appeal number 547. The owner of the property is 1791 Fairfield LLC, and the property address is 1791 Fairfield Beach Road. So that is, my motion is to rescind. I can read the 2 motions if you want. A motion was made by Harold
I just have
Zawadzki.
a question. Kathleen, who was
Sorry.
hearing off of this one? Were
It
you?
was you. It was your.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So anyway, so that's the motion on the table, is to rescind those 2 motions. If you want me to read them into the record, I can first, or we want to get a second first. If everybody's read them.
I don't remember what
You
the
need to
motion-
rescind the motion to correct the field card.
This is Kathleen, right? But the motion I would like to make is to rescind both of them, because the second motion includes the reduced value based on the field card correction. So I think the easiest thing to do is to rescind both of them and then bring it back. It's very similar, except I don't intend to reconsider the first motion again, and I'll tell you why if we have a
Okay.
discussion on them.
I'll second the motion to rescind both.
Okay. So,
This is John, by the way.
yeah, so let me try to explain why I want the first motion gone and see if you guys can follow me. So early on in the process, we were looking at the Sherman district, and I was looking at the BP codes and things that the assessor had added on a variety of properties, and I happened to find a few where the cards were coded incorrectly during registration. So when I started looking at the beach a month ago, before we even started deliberating and we were looking at dividing it up, I looked at a couple of the properties at the beach, this one being one of them, and noticed that this person had, sort of two codes on their card, both a site index of 6 and I think it's an adjustment factor of 1.2 location on the property. And so I assumed that that person was getting double dipped. That's what I said in our discussions. The person, it is a very large lot. The neighbor next to them has a site index 6. And so at the time of the meeting, I made a motion, or I recommended that we remove the 1.2 because it was an error on the card. So we quickly did that. Harold asked, we voted it as a card correction, and we took almost $500,000 off the property with the card correction. And
So
then
Kathleen, can I jump in here real quick, just so everybody can see what we're talking about? On page 7 of the file, you'll see the original card where it has on the landline valuation the site index of 6 and the condition of 1.2.
Right. So I told everybody I thought it was a mistake. We voted on it as a card correction. We took the 1.2 off and voted on the new value. And then, quickly thereafter, because it was such a large reduction, we spent no time looking at the appraisal, and it's also a very light appraisal, so I couldn't read it very well during the hearing. So we went ahead and we did deny we denied the additional, that motion failed 2-4-0 to deny the rest of the appeal. So when I went home that night, I said, you know what, why with all, the coding that they did at the beach, would MVS make a mistake like this on a property of this size? So I started to look, I went and looked at the appraisal. I looked to see that this is actually a double lot. I looked to see that they actually have an accessory dwelling unit on the property that yields $5,000 a week in rent in the summertime. So I then went back and checked with the assessor's office and confirmed that that 1.2 was intentional. It was put on during the revaluation by MVS, and it was supposed to be on that card in addition to the 6, because it is such a large piece of property. It's a subdividable lot, 100 and some odd square feet of, frontage on the beach. So that's why I want to bring it back to the table. I want to, have these 2 motions rescinded so we can evaluate the appraisal as a group of 9, and, so I can sleep at night, because, a $500,000 card correction is not it's not like a $15,000 card correction on somebody's property. That's a large amount of money. So that's why I would like to rescind those 2 motions and bring it back to the table. If anybody has any questions, as we discussed the appraisal, I went back and, looked more closely at the lot. I looked at the appraisal. We can do that as a separate motion, or you want more information about, why the 1.2 was intentional. But again, I hate to make a card correction, that was not intended to be made by the assessor's office. Usually those are when we take air conditioners off, or there has been a coding error on the card and they meant to change, to have a different code on it. That was not the case. It was my mistake.
So this is, I believe then the next step would be to hear further discussion and then to vote on the motion to rescind. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can discuss more the value of the land in that if this helps anybody, but it's for me, it's about not having this be a card correction. I don't want to do that, not for $500,000.
And again,
When it was not,
you feel that more weight should be placed on a review of the appraisal that was presented.
right, that it was not, that voting for a card correction, and I was the one who totally led that charge, because I had in my head, the other card corrections, assuming this was they were double dipping this person by mistake and they meant to take one off. But that was not the case when I checked with MVS. It was supposed to be on there. And Ross he didn't do those codings down there, so he was not as familiar with that card. So.
Any further discussion? Anybody need more time? Yes, Peter.
So Kathleen, because the card was corrected, what is the process for then that being reinstated by the assessor at a later time? Does that have to happen in the next reval period? How does that take place, or is it a done deal? It can't come back unless obviously we're rescinding it here.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have the authority to make those changes if, the recommended by assessor changes.
Right.
So he would just put this back.
Right. I'm not talking about that, though. I'm talking about the assessor basically overriding our decision at some point in the future, whether it be the next revaluation or it can't be, it can't be changed. What's the process there?
This is Harold. This is Harold. We are dealing with appeals that affect the 2020 grand list, not next year's. We're still dealing with the 2020 grand list. So if we requested a change to be made based upon a vote, and then we rescind that, then it goes back to what was originally on the card, and then we take it from there.
Right, I understand that. It's not, my question is, if the assessor, okay, feels that, you know, the card correction that we made was in error, and Kathleen's feeling like it was in error, does the assessor have the ability, do they just have to wait until the next revaluation period to change the card? That's my question. Is that correct?
I mean, I think he's thinking we granted, he's considering that we granted this appeal in this way. So yes, I would say that it's probably going to stick for 5 years. We approved his recommended by assessor changes, right? So he does that, those go through for this year and not next year. There are certain things he does every year as part of his process, but he can't go into undoing what the BAA has voted on. So.
Right. But he
right.
he can in 5 years adjust that back to the 1.2 that it was originally at.
Kathleen, he can do that with any reval, right? He can do it to everybody.
Okay.
Goes around the changes everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's his job,
Okay.
especially during evaluation. But in this case, when we grant the reductions, they stay for the reval period. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Has the ability to go back and reevaluate the property as a whole if they do construction or they do other things, or in this case she subdivided the lot, obviously, but she's got a couple lots there, so the other family has a couple lots.
Paulette, you have
Yes, I have a question.
I
have a question. How do we know this lot is subdividable? Because I'm looking at it on the map and I'm looking at the dimensions, and I don't see how this lot is subdividable.
Yeah, this is Kathleen. It's 0.86 acres. It's almost 38,000 square feet. It's two lots that were combined from one lot to the other. And also, I know the appraisal is very faint, so I printed it out and highlighted it. And right in the appraisal, it says that she told the appraiser she has multiple lots that can be subdivided.
Well, she has multiple
and she also
lots,
told.
but they're already divided.
Yeah.
She's got a lot next door that's already, it's a definite lot. It's got a different address. It's got different dimensions. So she's got an extra lot.
That's not part of this one. She's got that one too at 17. I know, I looked at them all. She's got another one with a creekside lot with a strip in between, right? But that's a totally separate, that's not part of this appeal. That's another lot that she has that's vacant, or the family has with a creekside lot on it. But that's not part of this appeal. She's appealing this that has the accessory dwelling unit on it and 88.86 acres of land, and it used to have 3 addresses: 1791, 1801, and 1803 Fairfield Beach Road. So she bought them at different times, and that's why it's such a large parcel with so much beachfront. But in the I don't know what she told Alexis in the hearing. They may have presented more information. I'm just gathering this from what's in the appraisal, that she gets $5,000 a week in the summer for the accessory dwelling unit, and the property is, multiple lots. And properties on the beach, we know a lot goes for about $1.3 million on the beach.
Well, I don't see it, because I'm looking at the lot just that one lot, 1791 is what I'm looking at. You can't subdivide that lot. It's not wide enough, and her house is, and the way house is positioned, even if it was, you just can't subdivide it. You can't make it any smaller. Now, I don't know how it can be, unless the little piece of land next to it goes to that lot, because they don't give you any property information on that one. So maybe that's it. The other one is already a lot. That's already divided. She's got land facing the street to the right of her. That's a whole separate lot. So It's not going to be divided. It's already divided. That's its own lot. So I don't see where we're putting another lot in here. We're putting another house in here. I just don't see it. I don't see how it's possible. She's got that lot.
Kathleen, she said it in the.
Catherine has her hand up. Catherine has her hand up. Let's raise our hands and be recognized, please.
Okay.
Catherine.
I think I'm taking it from a different angle. So wherever this house is sited, she just has an extra lot, that's what I'm trying to confirm. I mean, does she just really have like this extra lot to the side or two? And was that considered in the appraisal? just like, is this sited sort of like in the middle of all of these lots and you can't subdivide around it? We don't have a plot plan.
Well, I'm looking at it. This is Paulette. I'm looking at it on the map, the public record map. And the way the house sits, it sits to the side of the lot, like the edge of the lot. And these aren't exactly right, but pretty close. And so there's not enough room within the square that this thing shows up on that to put another dwelling. Now, if you go to the right of it, if you're facing the street with the water behind you, to the right of it is another lot, but it already has a separate address. It's already subdivided and it's big enough to
It's
build
not
on.
it's not part of this tax card, this field card.
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's got its own address. So, and it's, I don't know. I mean, it's a separate, it's plotted out separately. It's hard to say.
And Mrs. Kessler, what number is that, Paulette?
That is 1773 and it's owned by 1791.
Right, that's separate. That's not part of this appeal. That's another lot.
So that's
So
a different lot.
in the appraisal, if you read the appraisal, she says she told the appraiser that it was subdividable. We know lots down there are 9375 square feet, right? That's a conforming lot. She's got
Which page is that
38,000.
on? Kathleen, what page is that on that you're referring to?
In the appraisal, let's see. There's several different pages in there. The addendum is on page 22 is the addendum. It's really hard to read. I put on my other glasses. I think that's where she says it. And then it's another place where she says she gets $5,000. And we didn't realize she had an accessory dwelling unit on there either. She rents for $5,000 a week in the summertime. So that's another reason why the 1.2 is on there, because that's like having a separate house valued at $625, but the house, that second dwelling is only valued at $144. She gets a lot of value in her land for having a second home on the property. So where does it say? The subject is on an oversized lot, 0.87 acres, which
What page?
page 22 in the first paragraph. The subject is on an oversized lot, 0.87 acres, which, as per the owner, can be separated and valued at about $1,500 based on offers that have previously been made. The subject has a 3-room cottage that is used for guests, but that can be rented at about $5,000 per week for the seasonal months, as per the owner. So she did not, I don't know if she told Alexis that in the hearing, but she did tell the appraiser that, and that information is in the appraisal.
Judy, I'm trying to find where it is in the.
Oh, I see it. I see it. But I have my hand up and I want to speak. I'm waiting for Harold to recognize me.
I'm sorry, I was looking at, reading. Yes, Judy, I'm sorry.
Okay. So I have a couple of things that I want to say. Number one, now we're questioning the appraisal again. Now, the subject has a 3-room cottage that is used for guests.
Let Judy finish.
But can be rented at about $5,000 per week. Didn't say that she does. It says it can be, but it doesn't say she does. And you know what? Here's the thing. Why are we questioning this? This is an appraisal. Okay, this, honestly, we have an appraiser that came by that was in the property, gave the valuation, and this is something we've already approved, and here we go again, So I'm really frustrated with what seems to be happening tonight. I'm really frustrated with it, and it's incorrect.
Kathleen, then Alexis, then Catherine. You're muted.
Can't hear you, Kathleen.
I think the motion on the table is to rescind the first 2 motions so that we can discuss the appraisal and evaluate it as a group of 9. And all I'm saying is that the card correction was not the right thing to do. That's what I'm saying. I would like the card correction piece removed. And then we can decide if we want to bring her back down to the, to the 3295, or we want to bring her all the way to the 3.150. I think it's appropriate to do that. I just don't I don't want it to be recorded as a card correction because that was, that was not, it was not. We should not have voted on it that way. I shouldn't have led you that way. We all voted in favor of it. It was my mistake. And I just think, that's why I want to bring it back. And then we can discuss, with the validity of the appraisal. But I think those are some reasons why MVS put that 1.2 on there intentionally. And we can still take it off ourselves, but I'd rather we do it as a board and not do it as a mistake, that we thought it was a mistake, because it was not a mistake.
All right, Alexis?
Yeah, I just want to, and Kathleen would love to have a conversation with you about this, since this was my hearing. Would have appreciated if you picked up the phone. We could have talked about this, but you didn't. I was just going to say the appellant made no mention of the $5,000 to me during our hearing. I look back on my notes. So I just can't make assumptions about appellants, what they do, what they don't do. That's not our job.
Okay.
I apologize.
Catherine was next, but I'm not sure if Alexis finished. Alexis, did you finish? Catherine, you were next.
And Alexis is buffering, so I don't know if she,
We'll let her pick up again when she comes back.
well, I certainly feel Kathleen's angst because no one likes a land use code correction adjustment more than I do. So I totally get where you're going, and that you've had to say it 3 or 4 times. I feel for you there that, it was not the right way to do it. But I agree that, we have an appraisal now. So I get where you're going, and it doesn't mean that we're not, I think we need to kind of just do a rewind, and whatever we're going to adjust it to, it will not be in the land line or that use
Okay.
code.
Alexis, I'm coming back to you because I didn't know if you finished before you buffered.
I finished.
Okay, so the motion on the table is just to see if we wish to bring this appeal back for further consideration. Well, at this point, to rescind the card correction and then begin anew with the consideration of all of the information that was presented by the appellant, and not the card correction, but all the information that was presented to Alexis, including the appraisal that we see on the file. So, yes, Paulette.
I'm sorry, because I'm getting confused. We corrected the card, I get it. It was at 1.2, and we thought that was wrong, so we corrected. Why is it 1.2? Refresh my memory.
All right, you can answer that for you because she has researched it.
Can't hear you.
Muted, you're muted.
Yep, this is Kathleen. Paulette, the neighbor next door is also a 6. There's 3 6s down at the beach. There's this one, the neighbor to the west, and the very, very one at the end of the point, 2306, that we deliberated on the other night. Those are the only 6s in the beach area, and those are intentional because they are larger lots. The neighbor's a 0.6 lot. The one at the end is very big because it's got water views on all 3 sides. So those are the only 3 ones in neighborhood code 66 that are site index 6 codes. So that's why I thought this person had a double dip with a 1.2 on the land. But the reason why this lot is much more valuable than the neighbor to the west, who also has the 6 site index code, is because she's got 2 lots and she has an accessory dwelling unit on the property, which can provide income for her as it's a rentable property. So that's why the 1.2 is on there, because she has, she has 0.89 acres. The neighbor next door has something like, 0.66 acres. She's got 120 feet, whatever it is. She's got a lot of beach frontage. If you look in the land line on the card, it will show you how much beach frontage she has. And she's just got a couple lots there that are subdivided. You can subdivide the land, and a beach lot's 9. So that's why the 1.2. That's why MVS put the 1.2 on the card intentionally, in addition to the 6, was because of the value of the land. So when you do that, if you look at the card, the land is at about 2.7 million, and lots down there sell for $1.3 million. Tear down the beach lots on the SB8s were selling for about 1.3 million. So it makes sense that that's what he would do. He would value the land somewhere around 2.6, 2.7, and he did it by putting a 1.2 condition code on the land to get to the number that he wanted to be at, which was around the 2.7. Plus with the accessory dwelling unit that adds value. It's not just it's one house on there, I've just got two houses on the lot. So
Actually,
that's why it's on there. Yeah.
When I look at the map, I see 3 lots, and that accessory dwelling is on one of the, it's not on the same lot. So I'm confused about how they valued it, because yes, she has a big lot if you consider those as one lot. But the lot next door to her on the left, if you're facing the street, that looks like that's where that apartment is. And if you look at the width of that compared to the width of hers, it doesn't look like that. It looks like it's already subdivided, and it doesn't look like you could, it's not going to be a conforming lot. So you have to get a variance. So I'm confused about where they get these values. I'm like, I don't get it. It looks like it's 3 separate lots. So to say that the lot, her house is, it's subdividable, that makes it a lot more valuable. Yeah, if it was true, but it looks like she has 3 different lots already subdivided. So it can't be right.
Okay, we're still at the point of bringing this to the table to consider all of the information that was presented. So I think that discussion is more appropriate if we bring this appeal back to the table. And we vote, and we've done that. Now to vote on removing the card corrections so that we can look at the appeal afresh. Can we move forward to call a vote on the removal of the card correction? Okay, I'd like to call a vote. All those in favor of rescinding the card correction that was made in the previous decision, all those in favor, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor of rescinding the card correction. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The appeal to rescind does not pass. The vote is 4 in favor, 5 opposed. Yes.
Harold, so I'm just a little bit confused. Was that a vote to actually vote on the motion, or was that a vote to bring it back to the table?
No, that was a vote to rescind the corrections to the card.
This is Kathleen. The motion I made was actually to rescind both of the motions from before, both the motion to get rid of the card correction and to rescind the second motion, which was, the 3.2 down to the 3.1, because the second motion doesn't make any sense if you get rid of the first motion. Does that make sense? So in other words, it's negating it all, but I don't want to reconsider the motion to redo the card correction. If people feel they want to revisit that decision too, we could redo that as a reconsider, and I can withdraw my rescinding. But my intention was to remove that totally from the process and just go back to the original appeal.
Got it.
I don't know if I explained that correctly. So if you vote no, it stays, as the card correction stays, and we just don't revisit this appeal. It stays at the 315, whatever, the 3295 that she's at. If you vote yes, then it comes back to the table and we evaluate the appeal and vote on what we want to do with the appraisal or any information that Alexis has, because we never talked about what Alexis has either.
This is my understanding. This is Harold speaking. So I understand by not rescinding the card correction, it remains, and the value that was granted remains at $3,295,100. Is that everyone's understanding?
Yes.
Okay. So there's no further discussion of this appeal needed. We can move on to the next one. Is that correct?
Yep, I believe
Rooney,
so.
did you to leave it the way that it was?
That's my opinion.
I just stands his vote. Well, however it goes, it's fine. I needed to get it off my chest, and I feel like I did. But if I just didn't understand, was your vote to?
The appeal does not change. The vote does not change. The grant to $3,295,100 stays. No change. Okay, are we ready to move to the next?
I'm not sure he understood, Harold. Just let him. This is Kathleen. I just would like to explain it.
Yeah, no, this is Ronique. I would like to change my vote to a yes because I did not quite understand. I was thinking that this was a vote to bring it back to the table. To remove the card correction, I can see that being a yes vote for me.
Can we do that under Robert's rules? If a vote is conducted and it's on the record, how can we change your vote? I'd like to get an opinion on that. I'm serious. I'm not, no disrespect, Ronan. I'm just curious how that works and what is official.
No,
Well,
I understand that. That's why
I think that we have asked for revotes in the past. And before we have moved to another appeal number, we've had people, I've had for revotes. I have asked people if I didn't see their hand, or I've asked for a recount because I counted incorrectly. And since we have not moved to another appeal number yet, John, as a parliamentarian of sorts, do you think that
I wouldn't call myself a doctorate of parliamentarianism, and I'm actually looking it up right now.
All right.
I'm going to look it up too, Harold. I think he's trying to change his vote. Able to repeat things if you didn't hear it or didn't catch it is much different. And this is a very slippery slope, I think. So we just have to.
Yeah, with all due respect, you've done that before. In these proceedings, you've done this before. So,
I can't hear you here. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment.
With all due respect, you've changed your vote. Okay.
Peter,
Don't
you're
bring this up, please.
order. You're out of order. Don't tell me what I did or didn't do. Out of order.
All right, let's John.
We could look at the record.
Let's be quiet for a moment.
Come on, chill out, man.
All right.
Okay. So
Let's stop the side conversations. Raise your hand. I would suggest we give John a moment to check the ruling on this. If he can find something that will help us.
Okay.
I'm looking at the town attorney.
Why? He always votes with the town.
What is the issue? Is it because he changed his vote too late, or he didn't understand the question, or are we just saying if he didn't understand what the vote was and he wanted clarification on his vote? That's what I'm asking. Or are we looking up something different? Is it because he can't change it a minute?
What I'm looking for is, can we reconsider a rescind vote? Okay. Because on my chart here, I have a no, but there's an exception. And I want to understand what that exception is.
John, can you
Are
just
we
share the
reconsidering?
link that you're referencing, please? Can you just share maybe in the chat, like what you're referencing so we can all look at it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought there was a rescind vote at the table and we were voting on the rescind vote. Isn't that what we were doing? The vote to rescind the two previous? I thought that was the motion on the table, was to rescind.
I thought that was the vote that I had asked for. Yes, the vote to rescind the card correction.
I don't think there was a vote on the table. I
It
think the
was
vote
not to bring it back to the table. It was a vote to rescind the card correction.
and the second one, because the second motion makes no sense. You don't want to bring that second motion back because it's not the town's value. The town's value is $3,759,000. That's why I chose to, rather than to bring them both back, just to rescind them both and then to make a motion to or Alexis can, to grant the appraisal from the 3.7 to the requested value of 3.1. That's the motion. I thought that's what we were voting on.
This is Rodique. Maybe we should keep it simpler and just keep my vote the way it was. I know it sounds weird saying, but
Let's just do it proper. If you want to change your vote, let's just find out the right way to do it.
Yeah, find out.
Okay?
We're this far along, might as well check.
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, do you have Robert's rules in front of you?
I think we're a fairly fair group, and we give each other some space to make, to get clarification in space. And I think we should continue to honor that with each other. And that's what we've been doing all along. We don't see each other's hands, or we don't hear each other. There's a misunderstanding, but.
I get it. I understand what you're saying, Kathleen, but Mr. Chairman, do you have Robert's rules book? Maybe we can just figure out the right.
I do not have that information on hand. That's a situation that I did not anticipate. But I leave it to the individual voting members. If they wish their vote to stand the way that they stated, that is their option. And that is what the vote is that I'll consider.
Do you want to call the vote again or no? Because we need to move on.
If no one's opposed, I will call the vote again. And again, this is a motion to rescind items 1 and 2, which is to remove the car correction and bring it back to the original appeal request of $3,150,000 instead of the town's value of $3,759,400, and to consider the values based upon the information that was provided and not a car correction that was made by a suggestion of the board. Okay? So all those in favor of granting the rescinding of the car correction, item number 2 and item number 1, which was the, or item number 2 and 3, and going back to the original motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. The car correction and the value established as a result of the car correction is in 5 in favor. I just repeat, all those opposed, please raise your hand. 1. All those opposed? 1. I see Peter, Alexis, Judy, and Paulette. 4 opposed to the car correction. The motion is carried 5-4. The car correction is rescinded, and now we go back to the original motion and open that up for discussion. Alexis, since you were the hearing officer, would you please repeat the original motion? Do you have that information?
I don't have it in front of me yet. I'd have to look it up.
Or would you like another board member, or would you like me to?
The original,
state the,
I just need to pull it up here. Give me a second. The
Yeah.
original motion was to bring the debt value down of $3,759,400 down to 3.150.
everybody
Correct?
got that? Yes, that's the correct.
Kathleen is bringing it back. I wasn't prepared to speak on it.
This is Kath-
Okay, I think Kathleen seconds the motion, so it's open for discussion.
Excuse me, can I just get the appeal number again? I switched off that screen and I can't get it back.
Yes, it's 574.
Thank you.
547.
547.
Okay, thanks.
547, I'm sorry.
7.
547. So let me just state the count for the minutes, just for the last vote. Opposed was Peter, Judy, Paulette, and Alexis. Those were opposed to the motion to repeal the card correction. Yes, Alexis.
I'm not making a motion about this appeal, right? You asked me to read it. I'm not making the motion. Kathleen, bring this to the table, right?
Okay,
I'm not,
you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. So do we have a motion to bring this appeal up for discussion?
Well, this is Kathleen, and we have to decide on it, right? We can't leave it undecided. So we have to make a decision on this one. So if you want me, I mean, Alexis made the motion, but if she wants to withdraw.
I don't-
Make the motion.
I'm not making the motion. I'm not bringing this back to the table. You're bringing it back to the table.
Well, we have to, okay. So
Don?
this is Kathleen.
I made my decision on this on April 26th.
Yep. Okay. I would like to make a motion that we grant the appellant's fair market value on this appeal number 547 and reduce the town's value from $3,759,400 to $3,150,000.
Is there a second? Kathleen, second.
Yes. So, Alexis, I thought you had asked me to present because we never really presented it when we discussed it the first time. The only thing that was said was that there is an appeal in the there is a appraisal in the file. Why doesn't everybody take a minute and look at the appraisal? And so that was the discussion that we had that day. And at that point in time, I was the one who brought up the site index correction. So we never discussed the appraisal. We never went over it. And because the hearing wasn't recorded, I couldn't go back and listen to what the appellant said. So I can only present what's in the appraisal, which I'm happy to do, but I don't know whether the appellant gave Alexis any additional information during the hearing process that might be in your notes. So if there's anything else you can add, just to help the appellant, that would be, appreciative. Otherwise, I'm happy to, go through what I see in the appraisal. It's very faint online. It was a bank appraisal dated July of 2020. I believe it was done for a refinance. There are 3 comparable sales in the package and two properties that were currently on the market. So to go through the ones that are in the appraisal, the first comparable is 1091 Fairfield Beach Road. It is in the FB8 consideration. It sold for $3 million. It went to contract in May of 2020 and sold in August. It is an 11,000 square foot lot. The appraiser, like I said, the subject properties lot is about 37,000 square feet. So on that line, the appraiser adjusted the land difference by adding $12,000 to the property. It is a 100-year-old home, but it is completely remodeled. According to that field card for that property, it's 2,732 square feet. And the appellant does have a cottage on their property, which the first comp does not. So the appraiser added $100,000 for the cottage. So they added, and it is a beachfront home, so he did not adjust for any waterfront difference between the two. The second comparable that the appraiser included was 75 Old South Road, which is in Southport. That sold in January of 2020. It did not have any waterfront. It was not a waterfront property, so he adjusted it up $100,000 for the waterfront. It's a 28,000 square foot lot, 5,000 square foot house. It does not have a cottage. So again, he added 100,000 for the cottage. And that sold for $3.2 million. And then the third comp he provided was 296 Pine Creek Avenue, which is in the Pine Creek neighborhood. It sold in October of 19. It is a waterfront home, so he did not adjust on the waterfront at all. 13,000 square foot lot as opposed to the 37,000 square foot lot. So he adjusted that up 11,000 for the size of the lot. It is an older home, a newer home, 9 years old, so he adjusted down for that. And then the square footage on the home, 53,000. It does have a cottage on the property, so he did not adjust for the cottage, but I did look at the picture of the cottage if you call it up on the comp. It is a very sort of like a little bungalow alongside the home on Pine Creek Avenue. It is not FEMA compliant, and the subject property is not FEMA compliant either. So those are the three comparables that are in the bank appraisal. So only one, post-COVID. The other two are not in the beach area. And again, I did note that in the appraisal, it does say that the lot is on the addendum that the lot is subdividable and that they do have a cottage that can rent for $5,000 a week in the summer season.
Catherine has her hand up.
Hi, could I ask, because one of the comps, as you was, just listed, and I was wondering sold since then. So if I could ask our realtor friends to look up 1555 Fairfield Beach Road. And has that sold? I mean, that would be, a little more current sale. Along with 1091 Beach that they used. So we've got a lot of those stats. It's still active?
I'm looking.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. I was just
This is not.
filling in the time here. I don't have many other talents to. John's got another question.
Thank you. I didn't see the hand.
That's
John?
okay. So on page 23 of the file here, which is in the addendum, it says lot size adjustments. Lot size adjustments were applied at 20,000 per acre for a difference of 0.20 acres, more or less market based. So, and I think we had another one, another appraisal where they based it on, I think it was like $100,000 per acre or something, which we've seen, with the way things have been appraised, 20,000, man, if I could get a $20,000 acre on the beach, I would be tripping over myself trying to get that. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that in the appraisal, I think the lot size adjustment is not correct in what they used.
Yeah, this is Kathleen. Like I said, that one of them has 11,000. The neighbor at 1091, that first comp that sold in July, has 11,000 square foot lot. The subject is 37,000. He made a $12,000 adjustment up for that difference in the value of the land to go from. That's the in the appraisal that we've seen those before, where they don't adjust the beach land. They don't really take the value of the beach land into consideration when they do it. There is the cost approach in the appraisal as well. And when he did the cost approach for the property, he valued the land at $2 million in the cost approach. And then he came up, he valued the house higher. He valued the house at $1 million, the cottage at a lower number, but he brought the house up to come to the same number that he did with the sales approach. They matched each other or pretty close. So he valued,
Paulette, you
Paulette,
have your hand up?
Here we are yet again, ripping the appraisal apart because we all know better. We all know better, so why do we even bother with this? Why didn't we just deny it right off the bat? Because that's where we were headed anyway. The minute you got your hands on that appraisal, I knew we were done. Whether it's right or not, it doesn't matter. Catherine, to answer your question, 1555 is still on the market. And 1091 Fairfield Beach Road was the other one, I think, right? That one
No,
sold.
I just wanted to know 1555 because they were the only two on Fairfield Beach Road, and I like to know those sales. And he had
Yeah,
it in there. I'm with
that
him.
one-
You know, it was active. That was a good. Judy's got her.
Yes, Judy has her hand up too.
Yeah, 1555 is still on the market, Catherine, for 2675.
Thank you,
Yep. You're welcome.
Carrie,
Judy. You're on mute.
you're mute.
So here we are again. We have an appraisal for Bank of America, who was willing to grant these people a multi-million-dollar loan based upon this appraisal, and yet it's not good enough for us. This is an appraisal. $3,150,000. Bank of America went millions of dollars to them, and it's not good enough for us. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Think about that.
John, you have your hand up? You're mute.
To Judy's point, we don't know how much the loan was for, unless we had Ross here, or if you're able to look it up and provide us.
I was looking, trying to look it up. I didn't see it, but you know what? The Bank of America willing to lend them money. Okay, really? For $3,150,000, and this is for Bank of America, and it's not good enough for us.
That's not.
Done by a licensed appraiser.
Yeah, we know better
For
than
a
that.
bank. Okay.
Judy, Paulette, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think I was gonna, Judy kind of said what I was gonna say. Again, I understand that we want to be careful with this, and I understand it's a lot of money, and we have to take that into consideration. And people believe that they represent all the taxpayers. While we're sitting here, we are representing the taxpayer who comes before us. If the other taxpayers want to come because they're upset, they feel they're aggrieved, they're welcome to come. We'll be happy to listen to it. But you can't base somebody's value on what you think is fair to somebody else if this one is fair. And I don't see anything wrong with this appraisal. He did some comps, one in Southport, but again, they make the adjustments. In his mind, that's correct adjustment. How do we know that the appraised value that the assessor and Mr. Fazio put on that land is right? We don't know. They put it there and everybody just accepts it. We really don't know if it's right. Have they ever shown us a comp? Have they ever said, well, and they don't have to prove their case, but have they ever said, well, let me explain this to you so you understand it so we won't keep having these arguments? No, because they didn't. They picked the numbers out of the air in an algorithm, put a curve on the land like you're in 8th grade, and now we have a value that they believe is correct per acre, but that doesn't mean it's right. And so we give no appraiser any credit because after all, we just pull them apart because they're not here to defend themselves and we can get away with it.
Ronnie, you have your hand up?
Why should we grant somebody's appeal? And actually, let's see. They actually have a loan on this house. Let me see. 2020, I don't see what it is. Okay.
I looked, Paulette, I looked. But you know what? Our records are not updated. All that.
Yeah.
If you're, Ronnie has his hand up. If your comments are concluded, when they are, we'll hand it off to Ronique.
I was just going to finish by saying that, first we make a mistake. I don't think we made a mistake, but we made a card correction. Now we changed the card correction. So we saved that money. Then after we do that, now we have the ability to go back in and rip the whole thing apart again. It's just not right. The appraisal is the appraisal. Again. But I only do this for a living, 7 days a week. Don't Judy or I, God forbid. No, just go with your own idea.
We have to also understand how the appraisal is done and if the information in the appraisal is in keeping with standards and other appraisals that we've seen. So that is somewhat subjective for us because we're not appraisers. That's true. You're absolutely right. Ronnie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so like two things. So the biggest reason why I wanted to vote to not accept the card correction because I wanted to vote on the actual merit of the appellant itself. And if we made a card correction in error or it was just kind of overinflated, I would rather have voted on the merit of the case itself rather than the card correction. Two, looking at the appraisal and looking at John's point, if you look at the difference of square footage and what they valued at, that is a huge difference. I mean, you're talking about almost a 24,000 square foot difference. 24,000 square foot on the beach. I mean, you're looking, I mean, say for example, 75 Old South Road, I mean, and that has, I mean, 28,750. I mean, that's at 989 and they have it at 21 or at 12,600. If I'm reading that right, that's a huge difference.
Catherine?
Like Ronique, I mean, I was not involved in the, well, not unlike, I was not here for the first time through this, so I'm glad to have, you know, now it's my shot. You get that extra pair of eyes or whatever. And I'm glad to look at the appraisal. I think the appraisal is, you know, is valid. I think it's, and I'd like to just point out that the one that he included as a comp that was an active listing, he had right at the list price and it hasn't sold. And it's a lot. And I'm looking at the pictures and the subject has a beautiful front yard, which is different for, you know, Fairfield Beach Road. But, you know, again, I think it's not going to be able to put another house on that property. I know she said that, but for the appraisal, but, you know, we're trying to get a loan. So we're going to talk about our properties in good ways too. And the property that has not sold at 2,000,007. And, you know, she's asking to go down to 3,000,001. Yes, there are other differences in the properties, but the appraisal has it there and it has not sold at 2,000,007. Things are not flying off the shelf at that.
John, hand up.
I would like to invite Judy or Paulette if they would like to make an alternative motion for a different value, which may even be the one that we originally knocked it down to with the card correction. I'd like to invite them to consider that.
What was the number?
This is how that was $3,295,000.
You know, I could do that, but then I feel bad because why is it that we have to be strong-armed into making motions for numbers we don't want because we know you're not going to vote for the number that it should be? It's kind of like a hostage situation. We'll give you an opportunity to maybe agree with you if you go to a different number. But why should we pick a number that's not right? It's just not fair. But I know that if we don't do it, we're not going to. It's not going to win. Why do you think? You know, why do you think that number was right? Do we have an appraisal? We have comps again?
Kathleen had her. Well, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, we're going to pick another number. So you want me to pick a number out of thin air, but you might agree with that because it's less than what the appraisal is. But we don't have any. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't have any evidence that I should pick another number. I like the number that's there. I think it's the right number. So I'll just be guessing. You won't accept an appraisal? I guess.
This is Harold. You know, the appellant, as we well know, they have options based upon our vote, whether we grant in part or deny. In all three instances, they have an opportunity to appeal to the superior courts, and they can plead their case and perhaps get a better ruling in that situation than the board is prepared to deliver, whether it's the town's value or a number that, as you say, we pick. So we can vote with that understanding because, thank goodness, we are not brain surgeons doing live and die situations here.
Oh, but you guys might want to consider an appendix since you like to do things your own way. Don't let the doctor do it because how do we know he's doing it right? Just like the
Yeah,
appraiser
we have to
doesn't get it.
trust the doctor based upon his experience and training.
Trust the appraiser based on his experience.
John?
So,
So Paulette and Judy, and because I'm singling you guys up because you are the most adamantly opposed to this, have vocalized it the most, to what we're doing. The reason why I suggested that we take it down to what was originally done with the card correction is that we would leave the appellant at what they were originally voted at, if that was something, you were comfortable with. If you want to go all or nothing, that's fine. You know, we can vote on that. I'm willing to vote on that as well, but I guess I'm trying to reach out and say, would you be willing to do that? Or as Harold said, maybe if if we want to go thumbs up, thumbs down on the original motion, that's fine. And if the appellant doesn't like it, they do have that ability to come back next year, okay, or to take it to Superior Court this year.
If, this is Harold, let me say, let me maybe make it black and white. If we choose that number and we reduce them by the $145,000 and add $145,000 to the number, they're going to be stuck with that for years if they do nothing. If they like the number, it'll be there for 5 years. If they don't react and respond to the Superior Court within 60 days. They have 60 days. If they don't like that number, they can appeal to the Superior Court. So they can either live with that number or they can appeal to change that number. So that is associated with what John is saying to give that number. So I just wanted to put that in black and white. Yes, Catherine.
Because that number, I'm all for compromise and trying to come up with a number that works. However, I'm going to round to the appeal that was made based on the change in the field card, neighborhood, the land code is just not, it's not a hard number. I mean, it's not a good number. It was based on a wrong assumption. So, John, I ask you, because and I'm not speaking for Paulette and Judy, because I'm asking you to come up with a number then based on what you don't like in the appraisal. And if you don't like the value that was given for the land or something, then I'm going to put that onus on you to come up with a number. And that way, at least the rationale for the number that we come up with is on a true basis, not on an incorrect calculation that we had made previously. I don't want to go for the three. I'm going to round to 3-3 because that came up based on a wrong calculation. If it was based on a right calculation, then maybe we get a compromise. But I'm going to put the onus back on you, and you can ask for help if you want. But if you're not comfortable with the adjustment that the appraisal made for the acreage.
Yeah, I'm definitely not comfortable with the acreage adjustment being at 2,000 or 20,000 per acre with it. Let me go back and if I do some math, but I'm also open to suggestions and other thoughts from other members of the board.
I have a question, if I can ask.
Yes, Paula.
I guess I'm going to ask, why is it that Judy and I are the only two so far, there might be others, but as far as I know, that are willing to go to that number and willingly just go to the number because we've read the appraisal. And yet you'll ask me to pick a value that you might agree with, but you won't believe us that that's the right number. Like we do this. You can't get your people to understand that, but yet you'll allow me to pick another number and you might like it and vote on it. So is it really the number? Is that what it is? It's really not. It's just the number that people aren't comfortable with because it's too much of a discount.
I think you need to talk to John and convince him that the $20,000 an acre calculation is a valid calculation to be used by this assessor, given where this property is located, what the value of the land is in this area? Why do you feel that that particular number is correct?
Harold, here's the thing. I'm not going to convince anybody because it takes a miracle, and there aren't miracles anymore. Those miracle days are over. This is modern times. No more miracles.
Then I'll ask Judy. Judy, can you explain how $20,000 an acre is a valid calculation?
You know, I'm not going to pick apart an appraisal that was done for a bank that lends money maybe to any one or any number of us here. I'm right there with the appraisal, and I'm not going to question any part of it. It's $3,150,000. I'm right there. Catherine said something about, Catherine mentioned the other property. It was on the market for 2.7, and it's still sitting there in this ridiculously hot market. So what does that tell you? That property can't even sell for 2.7. They're saying 3,150. I don't see what the big deal is, and I don't know what, I really don't understand why we're spending so much time on this.
Right. Well,
that's what it is. That's the appraisal.
yeah,
I'm not varying from that. I'm not deviating from it. And
I-
I'm not going to question it, period.
Okay. That's fine. And I think that what we are doing is assessing the validity of the appraisal, because we always look at the comps and we determine, and we've heard it said by all members, I think, or the majority of the members at one time or another, this comp is good, this comp is bad. So we do pick apart appraisals because we don't accept all comps equally in an appraisal. I mean, that's a fact, okay? So I understand what you're saying about the validity of an appraisal. I understand what John's concern is about certain factors of the appraisal. I understand what others are saying about the comps in the appraisal. Yes, it's picking apart the appraisal because looking at different parts of the appraisal, okay? So I think that, yes, Judy,
Can we just call the vote?
yes,
Are we
I'm
ready
fine with
to
that.
call the vote?
I'm going to call a vote. All those in favor of granting this appeal to the requested value of $3,150,000, please raise your hand. I have 4 in favor. Opposed, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. Abstention. I have 1 abstention. The motion is not the appeal is not granted. The motion doesn't carry. The appeal is 4-4 with 1 abstention. Peter's abstaining. The voting for is Catherine, Paulette, Alexis, and Judy. Those are the opposed.
This is my last, that's it for me tonight, Harold. I'm done.
I have to sign off too. Are we continuing this till Thursday?
Our meeting ends on the 15th.
Okay.
If we don't have a quorum of 9 people before then we will have to vote on the remainder of the appeals with a quorum. So if you can please let us know what your availability is for tomorrow, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week, whatever the days are, then we will see what the day is that we can get all 9 members together again. Yes, Ronnie.
Can't we just do it on the 12th on the scheduled meeting that we had? Can we just wrap that up on that date?
Yes, we can, I believe. If we can have all 9 members on the 12th.
Yeah, I'm planning to be there.
All right. Do we have a
Available
time?
as well.
Do we have a time in mind? 6 o'clock?
6.
Is that okay with everybody on the
Yeah,
12th?
6 would be
How many more
okay for
appeals
me.
do we have left?
We have 3 more.
Do we have 3?
Do you want me to tell you what they
4
are?
more.
4 more, excuse me. I can read you the appeal numbers if you like.
Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just curious.
All right, we have
I'll
four.
look it up.
So
have-
could
We
I
have the
just-
last four that were on the email that Kathleen had submitted with the complete write-ups of the appeals.
I
All
think
right.
did 509 withdraw, Alexis?
I believe they are, yeah.
That
Which one?
was the last one, Hummerstone? Hummerstone, how do you pronounce it? I think, did they withdraw?
I actually thought I was bringing back their appeal, but I'm not any longer. It doesn't seem necessary. So it's not something I'm going to bring to the table when we do our next deliberation.
All right, when we have our next deliberation, we have four
Yes.
listed. We have four listed, and if you choose not to bring it to the table, then you just don't bring it to the table. When I call the number, if no one wishes to bring it to the table, it doesn't get brought to the table. Yes, Kathleen.
Quickly, but I mean, people can sign off if they want. The assessor made a mistake when he gave us not a mistake, but when he gave us the recommended by assessor changes the other night for real estate, the list included both last year's corrections for real estate and this year's. So there's nobody different on it. There's just less people on it. So we need to revote on the recommended by assessor changes. I happen to have had it on the agenda tonight. So if you guys want to look at it, I did upload the backup, but I checked it. It's the same ones it's just half of what was there the other night. So there's no surprises, no raises, no nothing. It included the list from last year as well as this year.
And I
the
believe
personal
that there were only five properties that were raised that might need to be considered. Or
Right,
might.
and that's on, well, yeah, but so if we can take a vote on that, then he can get that put away. That was his mistake. He added to last year's list instead of starting a new list.
Okay.
So
We can do that next
All
week,
right.
right?
I suppose we could rescind, I guess I could make a motion to rescind that vote on that or reconsider the vote, and we'll vote it again now that, it's changed. I don't know how you want to do that.
If you have
If
to
you'd like to
leave,
get, I'll
leave.
have to do it on Wednesday.
We will continue this meeting and discussions next Thursday at 6 o'clock, the 12th of May. Yes,
Can we vote on that? Get it off the table so we don't have to
Wait.
do it on Wednesday?
Wait.
I'll make a
Let
motion to.
Wait, Paulette has a question.
I have a question. He can wait.
Okay, that's fine. It just takes more time from us on Wednesday, that's all.
all right, we're starting at 6 o'clock on the 12th. Thank you.
And we're averaging an hour per appeal, I think, so we should really try and move things along.
Okay, well, you know which ones they are, and you can let us know if Hummerstone is still to be reconsidered.
And I just want to say, I'm extremely disappointed about that last appeal. That was criminal. That was criminal.
Well, the courts will decide that.
No, I just decided it. We don't need the court to decide it. What we did was wrong. We do it every single time, no matter what anybody says, you go right on doing it. I'd like to see how you felt if somebody did it to you. I don't think you'd be too happy. Totally dismissing somebody's professional work. Now this person has to go to court. That costs money. And they have to pay it now to go to court. It's ridiculous. When we have evidence, we don't have evidence, that's one thing, but we have it. No matter what it is, you pick that thing apart. You have no right to do that. None of us do. You think you do? We picked them apart before. Yeah, you have. We haven't. Judy and I
So-
haven't.
Paulette, can I ask you something, please? Do you
Sure.
agree that because my main thing was the land value and that it was assessed at 20,000 an acre. Would you agree with that assessment that the
Here's my-
appraiser did?
Unless he's here for me to ask him that question, I don't know why he did it. There might be a
Okay.
reason. I don't know what it is because he's not here. Maybe somebody should have asked him that when he was at the hearing. So I don't know. But
I mean, for me as a common person, that's where, looking over that, that's where I have my main concerns. So with the appraisal.
All right. I think we can conclude our discussions for this evening, and we will continue this meeting next Thursday at 6 o'clock. And Kathleen will notice it accordingly. Our secretary, Kathleen, will notice the meeting accordingly with the town. Thank you very much. Have a good
All right.
evening.
Thank you.
Kathy. And
Thank you,
someone
Kathy.
could make
Good night, everybody.
Good night.